My name is Genevieve Laurent. I'm 30 years old, and if you had asked me that morning what I was preparing for, I would have said Thanksgiving. A normal one. A peaceful one. The kind where you show up, smile, and pretend everything is fine, even when it hasn't been for years. The message came while I was folding laundry. No greeting, no explanation. Just one sentence from my mother that made my hands stop mid-fold. We're celebrating Thanksgiving only with children who behave well. Yours can skip it this year. I read it once, then again, and then a third time, like maybe the meaning would soften if I stared at it long enough. It didn't. It just sat there, cold, final, like it had been rehearsed. Eva was sitting on the floor beside me, cross-legged, completely absorbed in her little world. She was cutting out paper leaves for a thankful tree her class was making. Each leaf had something written on it in her careful, slightly uneven handwriting. She held one up to me with a bright smile. "I wrote Grandma's cookies," she said. That's when she noticed my face. The smile faded, just slightly. She tilted her head, studying me the way children do when they sense something's wrong before anyone says it out loud. "Is Grandma coming for Thanksgiving?" she asked. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out at first. Then I said, no. I don't even remember deciding to do it, but I turned the phone toward her and let her read the message. She didn't react immediately. She just stared at the screen, her eyes moving slowly across each word. Then she looked up at me. Did I do something wrong? There it was. That question. The one that breaks something in you, no matter how many times you hear it. Before I could answer, her eyes filled. Not loud crying. Not dramatic. Just quiet, contained tears, like she was trying not to be difficult about it. Like even her sadness needed permission. That was the moment something shifted inside me. It wasn't anger. Not exactly. It was something deeper, colder. A kind of clarity that doesn't come with noise, just certainty. The kind that says, you've been ignoring this for too long. Because the truth was, this wasn't new. Not really. My parents had never quite known what to do with Eva. Or maybe they just never wanted to. And if I was being honest with myself, they hadn't really known what to do with me either. Not the real me. Just the version of me that agreed. That complied. That paid. I didn't reply to the message right away. I sat with Eva until her breathing slowed, until the tears stopped, until she leaned against me like she always did when she needed comfort but didn't want to ask for it. Then I went to my room, closed the door, and stared at my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen for a long time before I finally typed, "Understood. I'll cancel my card for the event." I hit send. And that was it. Because the truth was, that entire Thanksgiving dinner, the catering, the turkey, the wine, the decorative details my mother loved to take credit for, all of it was paid for by me. For the past 3 years, I never mentioned it, never asked for recognition. I made good money as a consultant. It didn't feel like a burden. Until that moment. Until I realized I had been funding a table my daughter wasn't even welcome to sit at. So I canceled everything. Every order. Every delivery. Every service. No warning. No explanation. Just gone. Thanksgiving morning, Eva and I stayed home. We made pancakes in our pajamas. She insisted on adding too many chocolate chips, and I let her. We ate at the kitchen counter instead of a formal table. No pressure. No pretending. Around 11, my phone started lighting up. The family group chat. Pictures started coming in. The dining room. Perfectly set. plates aligned, glasses polished. My mother captioned one, "Just waiting on the feast." I stared at it for a second, then muted the chat. But the messages kept coming. Ben, my older brother, grinning beside our dad, both of them holding beers like nothing in the world could possibly go wrong. My sister-in-law posting a boomerang of her and my mom clinking glasses. And then, the one that made me pause. A group photo. Everyone smiling. Captioned, "To family that behaves." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because at that point, they still didn't know. They were laughing inside a moment that hadn't caught up with them yet. At 2:45, my phone buzzed again. A direct message from Ben. "Hey, was the food supposed to come later this year, or—" A few minutes later, "Mom says nothing showed up. She's freaking out." I set my phone down. Didn't answer. Didn't explain. Because for once, I wasn't the one responsible for fixing it. That night, Eva and I sat on the couch under a blanket, eating simple turkey sandwiches from the deli down the street. We watched The Princess Bride. She laughed in all the right places. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't associated with Thanksgiving in a long time. Peace. Real peace. But even then, I knew. That wasn't the end of it. It was just the beginning. Because while they were scrambling to figure out where their dinner had gone, there was something else already unraveling behind the scenes. Something they hadn't told me. Something I had already seen coming. And soon, they were going to need me again. The first sign came the Monday after Thanksgiving. I was in the middle of a client meeting when Ben called twice in a row. I didn't pick up. Then came the text. "Hey, are you free to talk? It's important. Nothing to do with Thanksgiving." That last part almost made me laugh. Nothing to do with Thanksgiving. As if they could separate the cruelty from the consequence just because it was inconvenient. An hour later, my mother called. Then my father. Then Ben again. It was like they had suddenly remembered I existed. Not as a daughter, not as Eva's mother, but as the emergency exit they always expected to be unlocked. That night, I finally checked my voicemail. My mother's voice sounded different. Not sharp. Not offended. Tired. "Genevieve, sweetheart, we need to talk. There's a situation with the bank. Just a temporary issue with the mortgage. Nothing dramatic, but we may need some help."
Temporary.
That was the word she used. Like a house slipping toward foreclosure was just a misplaced receipt. But I already knew more than she thought. 3 months earlier, a letter had arrived at my house addressed to my parents. I almost sent it back unopened. But the envelope was from a credit union I didn't recognize, and something about it felt wrong. When I opened it, I saw the truth. A loan. One my parents had co-signed with Ben for a brand new BMW. And the collateral listed was their home. The house they had lived in for 27 years. The house I grew up in. The house where I once thought love was supposed to live. They were behind on payments. When I called my mother about it back then, she brushed me off. "It's handled," she said. "Don't worry yourself over things you don't understand." So I let it go. I shouldn't have. By the time they started calling after Thanksgiving, the loan had gone into default. The credit union was preparing to move forward unless the debt was settled within 30 days. I didn't answer them right away. For 3 days, I let the calls come. My father left a message about family sticking together. Ben texted that it was not as bad as it sounded. My mother sent one heart emoji, then another message asking if Eva had calmed down. Not, "Is Eva okay?" Not, "We're sorry." Just, had she calmed down? Like my daughter's heartbreak was an inconvenience that needed to pass quickly so they could return to asking for money. My father finally wrote a long message saying they knew I wouldn't let something this small ruin everything. Small. That was what he called it. Losing the home they had risked for Ben's second luxury car in 2 years. Small. But Eva, crying on my laundry room floor because her grandmother had excluded her from Thanksgiving? Apparently that was small, too. I sat with that message longer than I should have. Because there was still a part of me, the tired, trained, obedient part, that wanted to fix it. Not because they deserved it. Because I knew what losing that house would mean. And maybe because some small, foolish piece of me still hoped that if I helped them one more time, they might finally see me. See Eva. See what we were worth beyond what I could provide. So I helped. That's the part I still think about sometimes. I wired the money directly to the credit union. Not to my parents. Not to Ben. Directly to the place that held the debt. Then I sent proof of payment and said nothing else. I let them sweat for a few more days before the official letter arrived confirming the foreclosure process had been withdrawn. After that, the tone changed immediately. My mother called with warmth in her voice I hadn't heard in months. Maybe years. "Genevieve, honey, we're so grateful," she said. "Your father and I were talking. We'd love to take Eva Christmas shopping. Make it up to her." I closed my eyes, because that was exactly the kind of sentence I had once prayed to hear. Not because of the shopping, because of the effort, the possibility, the idea that maybe fear had humbled them enough to become human again. I wanted to believe it. I really did. Eva wanted to believe it too. When I told her Grandma wanted to take her shopping, her whole face changed. She tried not to look too excited, but she couldn't help it. She picked out her sparkly boots, even though I knew they rubbed the backs of her heels. She packed a little purse with her allowance money and a folded list of gift ideas written in purple marker. At the bottom of the list, she had drawn a tiny heart next to Grandma. That almost made me cancel. Not because I didn't want her to go. Because I suddenly understood how dangerous hope could be in the wrong hands. My mother arrived smiling. Too brightly. My father waited in the car. Eva hugged me before leaving and whispered, "I'll bring you something if I find something pretty." I watched her climb into the back seat. Watched my mother close the door. Watched the car pull away. And for 4 hours, I couldn't settle. I cleaned the same counter twice. Checked my phone too often. Told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself people could change. But when they brought Eva home, I knew before she said a word. She stepped inside, with her shoulders small and her eyes lowered. No excited stories. No shopping bag swinging from her hand. Just one paper bag clutched loosely between her fingers. My mother barely looked at me. "The mall was crowded," she said quickly. "Didn't find much." Then she left. Like she couldn't get away fast enough. I closed the door and turned to Eva. She didn't speak. She walked straight to her room and shut the door. Inside the little paper bag was a rubber snowman keychain. That was all. I knocked softly and sat beside her on the bed. "How was it?" I asked. She shrugged. "Fine." But later that night, I heard her crying into her pillow. Quietly. Like she was ashamed of making sound. I sat beside her until she finally told me. They hadn't taken her shopping for herself. They had taken her to buy gifts for her cousins. For Ben's children. For the new baby. Eva watched my mother choose outfits, toys, and even a tiny gold bracelet for the baby to grow into. When Eva asked if she could look at something, my mother told her, "Not today, we already spent too much." Then she said the words Eva didn't fully understand. "We have to take care of the real grandkids." At the food court, my father said, "At least she didn't act out in public this time." Eva didn't cry in front of them. She didn't ask questions. She just waited to come home. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, because I finally understood. There was no turning point coming. No apology that would undo this. No amount of money I paid, no amount of grace I offered, no silence I swallowed would ever make them love my daughter the way she deserved. They hadn't changed. They had only needed something. And once they got it, they went right back to showing me the truth. I didn't confront them right away. That might sound strange, but by then, I understood something I hadn't before. Reacting in the moment would only give them space to deflect, to twist, to minimize what they had done. I didn't want another conversation where Eva's pain became a misunderstanding. So I stayed quiet. I let them think everything was fine. Because at that point, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about seeing clearly. And once you see something clearly, you can't unsee it. A week passed. Then another. They didn't call. Didn't check on Eva. Didn't ask how the shopping trip had gone from her perspective. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that confirms exactly how little you mattered to begin with. 2 weeks before Christmas, my father showed up at my door. No call. No warning. Just a knock, firm, familiar, the same rhythm he used when I was younger. The kind that used to mean I had no choice but to answer. This time, I chose to. I opened the door slowly. He smiled. Like nothing had happened. Like Thanksgiving had been a minor misunderstanding. Like Eva hadn't come home and cried herself to sleep. "How's everything?" he asked casually. "How's the little one doing?" The little one. He couldn't even say her name. That told me everything I needed to know before he even stepped inside. I didn't invite him in. I stood in the doorway and waited. He cleared his throat slightly, shifting his weight. Then he got to it. "We've got a bit of a situation again," he said. Of course they did. Apparently, the BMW they had helped Ben buy had accumulated fines. Toll violations. Unpaid tickets. Insurance issues. All registered under my father's name. Now the DMV was threatening to suspend his license unless everything was cleared immediately. "It's not Ben's fault," he added quickly. "The notices went to the wrong address. The system's a mess." I just looked at him. Really looked. At the lines in his face. At the expectation behind his eyes. At the way he had already decided how this conversation would end. "It's just a few thousand," he continued. "You've helped before. We're all very grateful." Grateful. The word hung in the air, like something rehearsed. Then he laughed lightly, as if trying to soften it. Think of it as an early inheritance. That was it. That was the exact moment something inside me shifted completely. Not cracked. Not broke. Just settled. Like a door quietly closing. "No," I said. Just that. No explanation. No hesitation. No softening. He blinked. Confused. Like the word didn't belong in my mouth. "Genevieve," he said slowly, "we're family. You don't turn your back on family." I tilted my head slightly. Does Eva count as family? The silence that followed was immediate. Heavy. He didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked down, then back at me, like he was trying to find a way around the question instead of through it. That silence said more than anything he could have. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so Eva wouldn't hear. "This is the last time we're having this conversation," I said calmly. He frowned slightly. "You're overreacting," he replied. "Your mother didn't mean—" "Don't," I cut in. Not loudly, but firmly enough that he stopped. "For 10 years," I continued, "you and Mom have made sure my daughter knows she doesn't belong. Not with words, not directly, but with everything else." "That's not true," he said quickly. "It is," I said, "and you know it." He shook his head. "You're twisting things. You're too sensitive." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice, because I realized something important in that moment. I didn't need him to understand. I just needed him to hear me. "You need to leave," I said. He stood there for a few seconds, waiting. Like he thought I might change my mind, like I always had before. But I didn't move. Eventually, he turned and walked away. No goodbye. No apology. Just gone. The next day, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. One line. "We always knew you'd punish us for not loving your mistake." I stared at the screen for a long time. My chest felt hollow. Not sharp pain. Not even anger. Just something empty. Because there it was. Everything they had implied for years. Everything they had hidden behind polite smiles and quiet exclusions. Now written out. Clear. Undeniable. My daughter. Their granddaughter. A mistake. That was the moment I stopped hoping. I blocked their numbers. All of them. My mother. My father. Ben. His wife. Every contact. Every social account. No announcements. No explanations. Just silence. The kind you choose. The kind that protects. The first few days felt strange, like something was missing, even though what was missing had never really been good. I kept expecting a message to slip through, a call from a different number, a relative stepping in to fix things. But nothing came. 2 weeks passed. Then, just after New Year's, the silence broke. Not from them. From my aunt, my mother's sister. She called from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was careful. Gentle. She said she didn't want to get involved, but my parents weren't doing well. That I should try to have compassion. She didn't know. She didn't know about the message. About that word. Mistake. I didn't call her back. Then came an email from Ben. Subject line, "We need help." 3 words. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just need. I didn't open it. But a few days later, something else arrived. A letter. Handwritten. From my mother. 5 pages. I read it slowly. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed to know how far she was willing to go. Most of it was explanations. Not quite apologies. Justifications wrapped in softer language. She said they struggled to connect with Eva because she didn't feel like the rest of the family. She said they weren't ready to be grandparents when Eva was born. That they had made mistakes along the way. Mistakes. That word again. Carefully chosen. Small enough to minimize. Soft enough to avoid accountability. Then, near the end, she finally said what the letter was really about. The house. It was still in trouble. The payment I had made hadn't fixed everything. There was a second mortgage, one I had never known about. And now the bank had started proceedings again. This time, there was no delay. The house was scheduled for auction in 45 days, and she wanted me to save it. Again. I folded the letter carefully, not to keep it, just so Eva wouldn't see it in the trash, because some things she didn't need to carry. That night, I sat beside her on the couch. "We're not going to see Grandma and Grandpa anymore," I said gently. She looked at me, not confused, not surprised, just quiet. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. I shook my head. "No," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why?" she asked softly. I took a breath. "Because sometimes people don't know how to love the way they should, even when they're supposed to." She thought about that, then nodded. "Can we have spaghetti tonight?" she asked. I smiled a little. "Yeah," I said. "We can." And that was it. No tears. No questions. Just acceptance. The kind children learn too early when the world doesn't treat them fairly. And that night, something inside me finally settled into place. Not anger. Not grief. Just clarity. 3 weeks before the house was scheduled for auction, they came back. Both of them. I hadn't seen my parents since the day my father stood on my porch asking for money, like it was something he was owed. Now they were standing outside my door again. Unannounced. Uninvited. Like time had folded in on itself, and we were back in a version of my life where boundaries didn't exist. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, just behind it, looking through the peephole. My mother was holding a folder. Thick. Organized. Prepared. Like she believed paperwork could fix what they had broken. My father stood beside her, quieter this time. Older. Not physically, not exactly. But there was something in the way his shoulders sat, something heavier in the way he looked at the ground instead of the door. They rang the bell again, then knocked. "Genevieve," my mother called through the door, her voice tight but controlled. "We know you're home." That's when I heard footsteps behind me. "Eva." "Should I get it?" she asked softly. I turned to her immediately. "No," I said. Just that. No explanation. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder and guided her back down the hallway. "Let's put some music on in your room," I said. "Something loud." She didn't argue. She just nodded and walked with me. I turned on her favorite playlist, waited until the sound filled the space enough to cover voices from downstairs. Then I went back. They were still there. Of course they were. I opened the door. Not all the way. Just enough. Before they could speak, before my mother could open that folder, before my father could try to soften things with silence, I said one thing. "You can stop asking. It's over." My mother blinked. "Genevieve, you don't understand the full situation." "I don't need to," I said. She tightened her grip on the folder. "The bank." "I don't care." The words came out calm. Not sharp. Not emotional. Just final. My father didn't say anything. He just stood there, watching the ground, like he had already reached the end of this conversation before it started. "We've taken steps," my mother continued quickly. "We're trying to fix things, but this is complicated. We just need a little more time, and if you could just help bridge the gap." I shook my head. "No." Her expression flickered. Not sadness. Not regret. Frustration. like I was making something simple unnecessarily difficult. "This is your home too," she said, her voice shifting, reaching for something emotional. "Your childhood, your memories. Do you really want to see it gone?" I held her gaze. "That house stopped being mine a long time ago," I said quietly. She hesitated. That wasn't the response she expected. So she tried something else. "What about Eva?" she asked. "Don't you want her to have a place like that? Somewhere to come back to? Somewhere that connects her to family?" I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was so far removed from reality, it barely felt real. "You already made sure she doesn't have that," I said. My father shifted slightly beside her, still silent, still not looking at me. I took a small step forward, enough that the screen door was the only thing separating us. "I tried," I continued. "I helped when I shouldn't have. I gave you time. I gave you chances. I gave you more than you ever gave her." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't about that," she said. "It is," I replied. "For you, everything is about money right now. For me, it's about my daughter." There was a pause. A long one. The kind where everyone knows the truth has already been said, and anything after that is just noise. My mother exhaled slowly. "Would you at least consider letting Eva write to us?" she asked, softer now. "So she doesn't forget her grandparents?" That was the moment. The final one. I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who had spent years deciding my daughter was optional, who had measured love in conditions and found Eva lacking. "You made sure she'll never forget you," I said. And then I closed the door. Not slammed. Not dramatic. Just closed. The house sold 19 days later. I didn't check the listing. Didn't watch the auction. The only reason I knew the date was because my mother had written it in the corner of her letter, like it was something I was supposed to carry. I didn't. Last I heard, they moved in with Ben. Which made sense. He had always been the center of their world. Maybe now he could carry the weight of it too. Eva didn't ask about them. Not once. Not where they went. Not why they stopped coming. Not if they would ever come back. It was like she understood, in the quiet way children sometimes do, that some doors aren't meant to reopen. I never told her everything. Not about the message. Not about the word. Not about the years of small, invisible cuts that added up to something irreversible. I told her what she needed to know. That love isn't something you owe people just because they share your blood. That family isn't defined by who's related to you. It's defined by who shows up, who stays, who chooses you, over and over again. Sometimes, I still think about them. Not with guilt, not with regret, just distance. Like remembering a place you used to live in but no longer recognize. There are moments when I wonder how they're doing. If they're still telling the same version of the story. If they ever think about Eva and realize what they lost. But I never reach out. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't just walk away. I closed the door. I locked it. And this time, I didn't keep the key.